Hey, howdy, hey, how's everybody doing out there in internet land? We are the hockey podcast that you're about to hear, Justin alongside Alexander.
Hello.
And thought for the day is a bathtub is just a boat in reverse. So, on this episode, we are going to cover the Eastern Conference final, or the Eastern Conference, and kick it off. Going to hit the Atlantic for reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, who do you have as number one?
Number one in the Atlantic, I will go out on a limb and say it will be Tampa Bay.
I am on that same limb.
All right.
What kind of point range?
So I don't think they're gonna be as crazy good as they were last year.
I agree.
All right, and so still this team taking a step back. Because my lock is actually Tampa Bay does not have 62 wins.
Yeah,
right.
that's fair.
I don't think they're gonna hit that again.
I agree.
I don't think they're gonna take. I don't necessarily think they're going to take a step back. I just don't think they're going to get all the good fortune that they got last year. I don't think they're going to be healthy the whole year. I don't think that they're going to have all the amazing, crazy, awesome special things that happened last
all the
year.
Historical.
Exactly.
Yep.
That said, they're still going to be the best team in the Atlantic.
I agree. They're my lock to finish first.
Okay, fair enough. So I have them probably around 115 points.
Yep. I'm 110, 115.
They're still going to be a very, very good team. Very entertaining to watch. Lots of points.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I am not a huge fan of Vasilevsky. Even though he won the Vezina last year, even though he had, I think, 39 wins, it's still... I don't know what it is about him. I feel like maybe he's just big and gets in the way of the puck. I don't see him as a top caliber goaltender like I would say of Ben Bishop or Pekka Rinne or some of these other guys where it's like, if I had to choose right now 5 goaltenders that I would want on my team, I don't think Vasilevsky is in that 5.
You got 5 other people ahead of Vasilevsky?
As far as something I would want on my team saying long term, this is what I want. Okay. Obviously, Tampa Bay, they were happy to say, hey, let's lock you up for 8 years. Let's sign you to a whole bunch of money. Great.
And get rid of Bishop, right? Because they used to have Bishop, didn't they?
Bishop used to play Tampa Bay a while ago. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Vasilevsky is, yes, the future. He has put up good numbers, but he's putting up good numbers on a really good team.
Yeah, so is he a product of not having to face a lot?
The goaltender gets the win whether you win 3-2 or whether you win 5-2. And they had a lot of 5-2 wins, where I can't say Vasilevsky was the difference maker.
Right.
This year might be a little bit different. And so if they're in closer games, is he a rock for them? Or is it kind of like, oh, maybe we don't have the high-quality goaltender we have. When they signed Vasilevsky to the contract, they made him the second highest-paid goaltender in the state of Florida. which is like, so Bobrovsky gets a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Still the third highest-paid goaltender in the league, but only the second highest in his state. I thought it was a little funny.
Yeah. That's pretty
good.
But
no, Tampa Bay, if you're a fan of Tampa Bay, you really have nothing to worry about. They're the GM that took over for Yzerman clearly knows what he's doing because he signed Braden Point to a contract that is extremely friendly for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's shorter term, good number at the end of the contract for that 4th-year qualifier. I would say they still know very much what they're doing in Tampa Bay. They're still going to be a pretty good team for a while. The only problem I have with this team is mental.
Right.
And that's more of a playoff kind of thing. And maybe they figure that out this year. We'll see. But I would say Tampa Bay's in for a good year.
I would agree.
So second place in the Atlantic, I am going to say it's actually going to be Toronto this year.
All right. Wow. We are off to a very rocky start.
Uh-huh.
I had Boston again, so...
Oh, you wanted Boston again?
Yeah, I just can't... Until they start pooping the bed, I just can't pick against them.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Let me justify Toronto for you here real quick.
Go ahead.
Toronto is a team that has all the talent they need to play really well in the regular season.
Okay.
Top line heavy, for sure. Second line pretty heavy. I think they fall off more substantially than other teams into their third and fourth line, which is what you need in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue with them is probably behind the bench in Mike Babcock.
Okay.
He has won Stanley Cups with Anaheim and with Detroit.
Right.
In a different era of hockey.
Right.
He has not, in my opinion, changed his coaching style, methods, and mentality to, as the game has changed over the last several years, in the last 2 or 3 in particular, where it has gotten faster, goals have gone up, the league has tried to make more goals happen. Things have changed in the NHL, and his coaching mentality has not. And you see that the most in the playoffs, because you saw coaches in the playoffs making adjustments, doing things differently, trying different things to get the outcome they were looking for. He was very much a stick to the play,
Stick to the
program.
formula.
He's a good hockey player, and we're going to go out there tomorrow and try and win the series.
Yeah, or even putting your top line out for more minutes when you need them.
Which he deserves every criticism of that, because he's the kind of guy that I feel like your best players have got to be your best players. Okay, well then put them on the ice for the
Let
most
them be
minutes.
your best players.
If they're your best players, then play them the most minutes.
Yeah.
But no, I can see where they have another good regular season, and they don't make it past the second round.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, then we need to find a different coach, because you have the talent right now to be a cup contender year in and year out. Excuse me. Regardless of what the rest of the Atlantic is doing, even though you have Tampa Bay, even though you have Boston, even you have Florida coming on, even though you have a young Montreal team, you're still going to be one of the best teams in that group, in this conference, because of the talent that you have and the amount that you're paying that particular talent. You had darn well better be getting 100-plus point seasons every year out of these guys, because if you're not, you will not have a coach, you will not have a GM. You will see a lot of turnover in Toronto, because that is a hockey hotbed market.
I say a lot.
Very, very passionate, and losing in the first round to the same team in the same way over and over again gets old really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a fairly short leash for Mike Babcock this year.
I would agree. I think you see a lot of rats. It shouldn't happen again. Especially, I mean, so even if you lose less than 7, which I think is worse than going on. I mean, if you go to 7, oh yeah, well, I mean, we got 7 coin flip game for the win.
But
know?
but what if you went to 7 after being up 4-2 in the 6th game in Toronto?
Yeah, that's the kicker right there. That's a little rough.
There was honestly a part of me that was surprised that he's made it through this offseason. I was surprised by that, and I have to imagine that the bar is going to be set so high of you need to be in the Eastern Conference Final minimum to maintain your job here, because if we fall short of that, we will find somebody else to coach this talent that we have, because we know the talent is good.
I would agree. Yeah, as far as Boston goes, I think same thing, consistency until you prove that you're not going to. I'm not going to bet against them.
Okay.
So they had 107 last year. I think they'll probably finish around the 105, 110 again this year.
Okay. I will talk about Boston when I get to where I have Boston.
That's fair. And the same thing for Maple Leafs.
Okay.
So what'd you have Leafs finishing up point-wise?
Leafs, I had about 110 points.
Okay.
I think they're not quite as good as Tampa Bay this year,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they will be just behind them.
All right, so who'd you have in number 3?
Number 3, I had Montreal.
Really?
I know I'm going out maybe a little on a limb, but Montreal is a team that last year was close, but wasn't quite there. Who'd you have?
I had the Panthers.
The Panthers.
Yes.
A very popular pick this offseason, I would say, to make some noise.
I agree. So is that bold enough for my bold prediction?
Is it bold enough for your bold prediction? That's a good question. Considering they're a team that finished with 86 points last year, how many more points do you think they're going to get this year?
I think they'll be at 95 to 100.
95 to 100. Okay.
So they're my number 3 seed out of the Atlantic.
All right, so you think it would be better than Boston, obviously. No, not better than Boston. Better than Toronto.
Correct.
Interesting.
I think there maybe lies my bold prediction.
I would say that would qualify as a bold prediction.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, getting the goalie they got, he's pretty good.
Okay.
You know, getting the coach you got, he's pretty good. I think he needs to change of scenery in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, seen it before in other sports. Really good. Championship winning coach. Kind of gets old, gets stale. Goes to another team, gets refreshed, gets replenished. Yeah, I think they'll see. Yeah, they had 86 points like I said last year. I think they can be 10 to 15 points better this year.
I would agree. I have Florida at another point with about 95 points.
Okay.
Again, probably a playoff team. They're right on the bubble of that playoff window because 96 points didn't get you in the East last year.
Which that's pretty rough.
And so let me justify Montreal in this third spot in the Atlantic.
Okay.
I believe that Montreal has the potential offensively to be a team that continues to score more than they scored last year.
Okay.
They have like Kakaniemi coming up. Like he was rookie last year. He still played really well. They don't have a defined top line center, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They're figuring that out as they go, but they have a number of guys that could be. Defensively, you're still anchored by Shea Weber,
Mm-hmm.
which he came back last year when he was healthy. Still a very solid, even though he's a veteran, aging veteran, he's still a very solid defenseman. Power play, still got that big shot. Leadership capability, we're talking somebody that can make a difference on your team on a given night. You still have Carey Price in goaltender, who is the highest paid goaltender. Right? There's the thing about the Atlantic Division, that's your three highest paid goaltenders of
Mm-hmm.
Price, Bobrovsky, and Vasilevsky. I think Carey Price has a better year than he's had the last couple years.
I agree, because he's kind of had a couple of rocky...
He
has
has
been hurt a little bit.
He's
here
had
and
some
there.
injuries and stuff here and
Mhm.
there, and that has really played into the effectiveness of the team. If you look at Montreal last year, 96 points. They were a better team points-wise than a number of teams that made the playoffs in the West. They just were in the wrong division, in the wrong conference.
That's right.
It was rough. I mean, you had Carolina at 99, you had Columbus at 98, and they're the ones that squeaked in above Montreal. So they were a game or two away from being a playoff team last
Mhm.
year. And I think for a young team to be right at that point, this is the year where you take that next step of saying, all right, guys, we got so close. Now we're even hungrier this year to get to the playoffs. I see them as a team that's very much about trying to make some moves to get more players. I mean, you saw that when they wanted to sign Sebastian Aho, right? They offered
Yes.
Sebastian Aho.
Oh, yeah, big time.
This is a team that is trying to get better right now. For right now, like they're entering their window of
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be a good team. We're already a pretty decent team because we're already better than half the other teams in our division, substantially so.
Yeah.
And so I can see where they are going to make a substantial difference as far as like the plus minus goes last year, which is usually a pretty good indicator of a team that makes the playoffs and doesn't. They were the only team that had positive plus minus that missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they were playoff caliber last year. I don't see them taking a step back. I see them taking a step forward. And so I'm going to say, yeah, Montreal's going to have a good year. They're going to get some better goaltending from a top-line goaltender, right? And I think they're going to shock some people. And I'm not going to say that's my bold prediction because I still have a bolder prediction still coming for this division.
Ooh.
And
Tell me more.
you will find out here shortly. So no, I put Montreal in that third spot where you said you had Florida, correct? All right.
Yeah, the Panthers beat them out 95 to 100.
Okay.
So who'd you have for number 4 then?
Number 4, this is where I put Florida.
Okay.
I agree with you. Florida will be better this year. They should be substantially better this year. I believe I also have them actually making the playoffs in that 4th spot. Again, bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of flip-flop back and forth on that, but I think I have them in the playoffs over another wildcard team out of the Metro. You bring in Joel Quenneville, which is great move.
Mm-hmm.
You immediately give him a goaltender
Oh, yeah.
that you can get behind right away. So that's a huge start. Is new coaching system, new goaltending, that should all be an upgrade. And you still have a decent forward group from last year, the years before that, and they've made some other pieces, movements to improve in other areas, defensively, second line, third line forwards, and whatnot. So they're a team that is trying to dramatically get better
We're trending
from
in the right
last year to this
direction.
year, right? And that's great. It's still something that hasn't happened yet, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where I show, because I can say Montreal, look, you proved to me last year you are right at that playoff bubble, and you are in some ways, in some conferences, a playoff team. Florida wasn't that last year.
Correct.
So they're basically jumping to the point to be at that bubble, whereas I take Montreal at that bubble and say you guys have jumped further into the bubble.
Bump them each 5-10 points, and
Yes.
that's kind of where you get
Yep.
them.
Yep.
Yep.
So, but no, I'm high on Florida as well. Florida is
Okay.
could be another exciting team.
All right, yeah, so I had Toronto.
So you have
Being-
Toronto fourth.
Correct. 95 to 100 points.
Okay.
I think.
So you think they're kind of taking a step back this year?
I think so, just a little bit.
And why is that?
Well, I think they're taking a hair step back, and I think the Panthers are taking a big enough step forward
Okay.
to kind of overtake them. If the Panthers hadn't signed Quenneville, hadn't got the goalie,
Bobrovsky.
thank you, I can never remember how to say his name. If they hadn't gotten him, then I would still put the Maple Leafs at number 3 then. But I think the Panthers did enough to overtake him. I mean, I'm both the same 95 to 100 point range.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, same thing, wouldn't be surprised, but I think Panthers will be that number 3, and I think the Maple Leafs will be in as the wild card as number 4. But
Okay.
hey, I mean, if they get a number 4 as a wild card, that means they probably won't be playing Boston. So
This
that's going to
is
be pretty good news for them.
That's true. Very, very true.
Okay, so who did you have then at number 5?
Well, who's been missing so far out of the top 4 that you think should have been in the top 4?
Oh.
So this is my bold prediction: is Boston misses the playoffs.
That is quite a bold prediction.
It is a bold prediction.
What do you-
I have them right there at that bubble line with Florida and with some other teams for wild cards out of the
Okay.
Metro. And I will now have to try and justify this, right? Boston just played a hard, long, brutal offseason in which they had a ton of injuries. Like, you look at Chara, you look at Bergeron, you look at like the ones we know about, right?
Right.
And this offseason has been shorter than they have had, to where the older players like that, like Bergeron, like Chara, they have not had a longer offseason to recover, and you're going to be right back into the thick of playing Tampa Bay, playing Toronto, playing Montreal, playing Florida every night. Of the Eastern Conference is tough.
Yes.
I don't feel like Boston got faster in the offseason. I don't feel like they got younger in the offseason. Maybe they healed up some, right?
Well, maybe not enough.
But for as fast as the regular season is played now, if Boston was in the playoffs, I would still take Boston to win a couple series.
But to get there,
But to get there,
mhm,
I think they are an older, slower team than they were last year.
more banged up.
And I think the other teams around them, like Florida, Montreal, Toronto, Tampa Bay, are stronger and faster.
Okay.
And younger and healthier. And I think this is the year, because usually at some point, if you have a team that's good for a long period of time, there's a year where things just kind of fall off the end. And I think this is the year for Boston.
Okay. Like the Blackhawks.
Like the Blackhawks did at some point. Yep, like
Mhm.
the Kings did at some point.
Mm-hmm.
They hit that wall, and it's like,
Got to rebuild,
our
retool.
window is done.
Right.
And I think that is this year for them.
Well, we'll see. I mean,
It's bold. I
It
will
is.
give you
It's
this.
very
It's bold. It would have been
Make-
very easy just to go Tampa Bay, Toronto, Boston, like it's been every year since
Mhm.
whenever. But I'm going to put myself out there.
all right. Yeah, the Canadians 5th,
Okay.
95 to 100. I don't currently have them as a wild card, but I wouldn't be shocked if they beat out a team in the Metro for the wild card.
Okay.
Because I have the team in the Metro as a wild card at the same point range as well.
Right.
So, but I think Canadians, finished at, like I said, 96. I think they'll be probably about the same range again. Will be
Mhm.
good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
Okay, so who is number 6 in for you?
Number 6, I have put in Detroit Red Wings.
Right there with you.
Okay, so Detroit Red Wings, for those of you listening, is my team.
Homer.
Absolutely a homer. Honest homer, which maybe isn't the definition of a homer, but
Yeah.
still an honest homer. I understand the struggles that this team is having as of late. We know why that is the case as far as selling the future to continue a playoff streak for 25 consecutive years when really you should have started to rebuild sooner.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't, and so now they've had years of suffering of we still are paying guys money that don't play for the team anymore. We are still old in areas that we can't be old. We are poor defense. We don't have a good goaltending system. It's just not a constructive environment to building a champion right now. And so they've been tearing it down and rebuilding it. and a main part of that is Ken Holland's out, Steve Yzerman is in, and he's going to come in and do things the way that he did in Tampa Bay, hopefully.
Right, yeah. See if he
We're,
can
I mean,
catch lightning in a bottle again.
if 4 years from now we win 62 games and lose in the first round, I should be happy with that because it's at least you had an entertaining regular season to watch your
That's
team
right.
to play, and you have a ton of stars to watch and lots of good hockey. That's the hope. Detroit's a great playoff atmosphere. It's a great hockey town. Regional 6, it's an excellent place to be, and I think when they become a better team again, it'll be an attractive place for free agents. Right now, they're not in the market for any free agents because why would we pay somebody to come in and help us lose? Because that's kind of where they're at right now.
I'm saying, as a free agent, why do I want to go to Detroit right now?
Again, if you're just the kind of guy, I have my rings, and I just
You'll
want to
pay me a
go
lot
where I
of
can
money?
make money. But I don't think Detroit's going to give out money to those guys because Tampa Bay really didn't do that. They didn't really go out and, but most of Tampa Bay's people in Steve Yzerman's era were we grew these guys in our system.
Right.
We didn't have to go out and buy them.
And I think that's what you lot see for a lot of successful teams in any sport is not overpaying for guys.
Yes.
You pay your
Absolutely.
guys what they're worth, maybe a skosh more just to keep them happy,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't overpay them by millions and millions of dollars.
Carlson.
Uh-huh, exactly.
And yeah, so the reason I have Detroit here as opposed to lower, even though I think they very well could be lower, this year is Yzerman's first year getting a feel for the team. And I almost feel like it's a contract year for a lot of guys. And you see how guys play sometimes when they have a contract year,
Oh, yeah.
they step their game up, suddenly have more
big
energy, more
time.
dedication. And it's like, if you want to be a part of the Detroit Red Wings going forward in this process, you're going to have to prove it to Steve Yzerman this year because this is the year where he's watching you, trying to figure out, are you a part of this future or not?
Who's worth keeping, who's cutting.
Exactly. And so I can see where instead of saying, guys, we're just going to be crummy this year and we're just going to be last place or second to last place, we're only going to get 70 points this year. Oh, well, that's the way it's going to be because we're not very good.
Right.
You may see some guys playing out of their typical capabilities because they see where if I don't play well, I don't have a job in Detroit anymore.
Right.
And Detroit's usually a market where it's like guys want to be because it is a good hockey town. It is tradition. It's iconic.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of guys that have worn the winged wheel and been like, that was okay. It's just
Yeah.
another team. It's not like playing in Arizona, right? You know, it's not like playing in Nashville. It's like, oh, the history in Detroit is so rich.
Right.
And so I see where Yzerman's going to take his time deciding these things. That's why they didn't name a captain this year, which they still could. Obviously, they can change their mind at any point and name a captain.
Can they make a captain like midway through the season?
You can make a captain whenever you want to make a
Okay.
captain. Yep. Everybody believes it will be Dylan Larkin at some point. A lot of people feel it should have been Dylan Larkin already, or at least should have been this year. I understand with Zetterberg retiring last year as the last captain, going a year without a captain.
Just kind of a respect kind of thing, or
Yeah, and not having that guy that was immediately let's do this, because the Zetterberg retirement wasn't foreseen long term. It wasn't like, oh, I'm retiring at the end of this year. Goodbye, everybody. It was, let's go through the off season and see how to do it. Kind of like Justin Williams, kind of
Mhm.
like some of these other guys that have decided, you know what, I need to get closer to the season to decide if I want to go or not. And he wasn't. He retired. At that point in Detroit, you don't want to just name the next guy captain because Detroit's captainicity has been Yzerman for 20 some years. Then it was Lidstrom for 6 to 8 years. Then it was Henrik Zetterberg for 6 to 8 years.
so a lot of tenure.
There's a lot of tenure ever since Yzerman took over. And so now that Yzerman's the one basically in the house now, he's not going to name a captain that he doesn't think is going to be the captain for the next 10 years. He's not going to be like, all right, well, we'll take this guy, we'll make him captain because we need a captain. And then, okay, cool. And then when he leaves in 2 years, then we'll find some other captain. There's only a few guys that get to wear the C in Detroit. And you're going to pick those guys very, very particularly. And it's not something that you're going to give any short amount of thought to.
Right.
And so, having not been a part of the team all last year, give him a chance to see. And he's going to realize it's Dylan Larkin. And he'll name him some point this season or right before the start of next season. But at some point, they will do it because that's where things are going.
Yep.
I think it's also maybe a test for Dylan Larkin of, you should be the captain. Everybody believes you should be the captain. We're not going to give it to you yet. Let's see how you react.
Prove it to be the captain.
And the way that he's handled it so far, that's how you expect captain material to handle not being a captain.
Yep.
And honestly, it's not like captain these days in the NHL is all that big anymore, because it's not the hard enforcing kind of league where it's like, look, the C's on that guy's chest, da-da-da-da-da. But it's still historically leadership of your team, to where you want that guy to be the face of your franchise. Dylan Larkin answers the questions of the media for the team after the end of their game, regardless as to what's on his chest. That's who people put the microphone in front of, because we don't have a captain, so let's ask Dylan.
Right.
He'll eventually have the seat. It'll just be the official, okay, now we'll ask the captain these questions.
Right.
So really, it's just going to be a ceremony of naming him captain. It's not going to change his job duties at all, which is fine.
Yeah.
But no, Yzerman is making a lot of changes, or going to make a lot of changes, already has made some changes. They are going to be getting younger. They're going to be getting faster. They have a number of contracts still this year and next that need to come off the books.
Okay. Yep.
Guys that are like, once your time is up here, we're done with you. Or when we get to the trade deadline, you're going to leave. Like we mentioned in our Western Conference preview, Jimmy Howard maybe ending up on another team. I can see where there could be another number of guys, like a Darren Helm ends up on another team. There's some pieces that Mike Green may end up on another team. It is quite possible that they're going to kind of clean house a little bit more, to where I feel like next year they might even be worse than this year, because they may clean house to the point of, all right, we're starting fresh with all these guys. We'll figure it out from here. So it's possible this rebuild that's kind of been slowly maybe getting better, suddenly kind of levels off, dips again, and then from there ascends to another point of fantastic championship hockey. That's my hope, that it happens in my lifetime.
Get another 25-year run out of it.
That would be that'd be awesome.
Another 10-year run out of it.
Right now I'd go for one.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I think, and that's the optimistic side of looking at Detroit this year. On the pessimistic or maybe realistic side is they're going to be bringing up a lot of young players from the Grand Rapids Griffins, their AHL team. We're going to give this guy a try for a couple weeks. We're going to give this guy a try for a couple weeks. We're going to see what we have in our farm system, bring these guys up, give them a chance to play, and we're going to take our lumps. We take our lumps, and we're going to maybe get a top 3 pick come the draft.
Okay.
I can see where that may end up happening. Last year, they were right around. They were just outside of the playoffs points-wise last year around Christmas. That's how this team was playing. And then injuries hit, and they just kind of fell off, and then fell off some more, and then got healthy again towards the end of the year once they were out of it. And they were one of the hottest teams at the end of the year last year as a non-playoff team. One of the other interesting things about Detroit last year is they had the most one-goal game outcomes in the league. I think they had 42 of them. Like over half their games were one goal decided. Some of those were regulation. A lot of them were overtime and shootouts. They played competitively a lot. They didn't know how to win, and that's indicative of a young team. Right. There's a lot of teams that I think go through that, and I think that will be the case again this year. I think they maybe find a way to win a few more of those close games this year, but I think they're still going to be very tight with the teams that they play.
Yeah, they finished at 74 last year. I have them about 75 to 80.
So somewhere in there. Yep. So again, a 1 or 2, 3 game improvement is all that we're talking about.
Yep.
And that could go the other way to where they're a 68, 69, 70 point team. If we lose a few more games, just because they're figuring things out. Yep. Maybe give somebody else a shot in goal for a few games. Somebody up out of the AHL or whatnot. I mean, you're a professional team. You're always trying to win every night. But I don't necessarily know they're always going to put the best players out there to try and win every night. They're going to see when these guys are trying to win, how well do they play? When these guys are trying to win, how well do they play? So it's going to be a year of. It's going to be interesting to watch as a fan, just from the standpoint of we'll get to see some new faces, some new skaters, some new styles, some new looks, all those kind of things, and start to see maybe a glimpse of the future, as opposed to, boy, we're just kind of trash right now.
Mm-hmm.
there should be some semblance of hope on this team this year that we can maybe kind of see where we're going to be going in the next several years. That's the hope.
All right. So Red Wings number 6,
Mhm.
number 7.
Number 7, I put Buffalo.
Yep.
I think I put Buffalo there just because I figured last place was last place.
Yep, same here.
And so,
The
that's-
dumpster fire of all dumpster fires.
yeah, it's going to be another rough year for Ottawa.
Uh-huh. And I don't think Buffalo's going to go on a 10-game winning streak again this year. So,
But
bump them
Buffalo,
down.
there was a point last year. Buffalo was at 32 points, with the most points in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
They were better than at that point than even Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And then, yeah, somebody threw a load of kerosene onto a dumpster fire. It was crazy. It was crazy how badly things went, how fast.
Yeah.
Skinner was scoring goals like crazy. It was like, wow, this Buffalo team, what is this? And then reality hit, and they realized they were Buffalo,
Uh-huh.
and they're like, okay, we'll settle back into our lower than mediocrity place
Yeah.
that we seem to be comfortable with.
Yeah, like I said, that 10-game winning streak like bumped them way higher than they should have been.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know,
Yeah.
I really don't see that happening again this year.
Yeah. It's like if you're watching somebody run a marathon and they have a really good mile, it's like, oh, yeah, they were running downhill. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. They're not going to maintain that for the marathon, right? And so I don't see where they did a whole lot in the off season to get dramatically better or dramatically worse. And so it's almost like, okay, well, I guess we'll just buck up and try it again this year. And I don't see them playing better this year than they did last year as the overall year goes.
No, me either.
They may have a hot streak again. They may beat some good teams, but I would say as an overall, not a whole real reason to be excited in Buffalo this year.
And same thing, Ottawa. Not a whole lot of reasons to be excited in Ottawa.
Ottawa, I think they're rebuilding. I think that's what they're doing, but it's hard to say for sure. Now, this is a team that only just a couple years ago
Uh-huh.
was Game 7 against Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah.
Like they were there, and the number of guys on that team that are no longer there is staggering because you no longer have Carlson, you no longer have Ryan. You're like what made that team good a few years ago is all gone, and now they're into this. All right, well, we have Kachuk. They just signed Sherratt. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're rebuilding, but we're suddenly rebuilding. And I don't necessarily think they were at a point where like, oh yeah, we're going to be in a rebuild, because you just came from, we had a shot at going to the Cup, to
Should be a retool, not a rebuild.
yeah, and so it's disappointing. I think if you're in Ottawa, and they've obviously gone through some other changes as far as management, front office kind of stuff goes, which teams in that position tend to go through.
Mhm.
You don't expect Boston to be changing coaches and GMs or anything anytime soon. You don't see.
No.
It's like, well, the lower teams that are struggling, that's where your carousel comes in. So,
Yep.
But yeah, it's
Alright.
going to be hopefully a sad year in Ottawa, I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably. Sorry for any Ottawa fans out there. So that wraps up the Atlantic, I would say.
If you're an Ottawa fan out there, we're not telling you anything you don't already know.
Yeah, this is true. This is very true. So deep in your heart, you know to
Uh-huh.
be true.
Exactly.
So, all right, well, let's jump over to the Metro.
All right.
Who do you have as the number one slot?
The number one slot in the Metro, and this is one I'm really not confident on. I don't know why I like this team so much, because I picked them to win the Stanley Cup playoffs last year once we got to the playoffs, is I have the New York Islanders.
I have them as well.
Really? I've heard a lot of people are not high on the Islanders. They think last year was a fluke.
Mhm.
And I don't think you look at Barry Trotz and say, you were a fluke, sir.
Yeah, they are my bold prediction to finish first in the Metro.
Okay.
So I have them at about the 110, 115 range.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, they got 103 last year. I think another year under the same coach. Another off season.
What is your concern goaltending-wise with No Letner and replacing with Semyon Varlamov? And how do you feel if you're Thomas Greiss after having a good year last year but being overshadowed by Letner, of being like, oh, hey, maybe I'm the guy. Oh, nope, you're not the guy. We're going to bring in this guy from Colorado. Oh, okay, I guess I'll play backup. I'll play my 30 games. I'll put up my 9.23 save percentage, and I guess I'll just
Yeah.
be your backup still.
Do you think Grass will be the backup?
I think Grice is the backup. Yep, because they brought in Varlamov and paid him $4 or $5 million a year,
That's
which
true.
is $5 million a year what Lettner got in Chicago. So there was clearly some reason why they didn't want Lettner back
Yeah.
in New York, which
It's kind of a head scratcher.
I don't know if it's the way that they got swept by Carolina.
Could
And they're
be.
like, hey, you hit a wall and we can't have that happen, so you're out of here.
Yeah.
Or what the deal was, or if they just didn't want all the attention and drama of the issues that Lettner had and overcame. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like he was a feel-good story, had a great year, deserved to get paid, and they weren't willing to do it for whatever reason. Now, maybe they're just that confident in their goaltending coach that everybody says like the best goaltending coach in New York. Maybe they're like, we can make anybody a star. Watch us do it.
Okay. Could be.
I don't know the thinking behind that, but I was surprised when
Yeah.
he wasn't there.
I would agree with that. But no, I think they'll do okay. Goaltending wise, I think they have enough to defensively to kind of help with that.
In a league where they're scoring more goals,
Mm-hmm.
they're a team that's giving up few goals.
See, weren't they the first in fewest
They-
goals allowed?
Yep, they were first in fewest goals allowed. They gave up 196. They gave up like 296 the year before.
Yeah, so that was
They went
substantial.
from worst to first as far as goals allowed with just a coaching change.
So
And so I would say if they continue to play defense that way, they have guys like Matthew Barzell, that is a young, hot player. They have some other pieces around there. They re-signed their captain this year. They were able to sign their captain again, do an extension, so good for them. Couldn't quite do that with Tavares last year.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think they are
Yeah.
established at this point,
Think so.
and they play well.
Yeah, and like I said, another year under Trotz, I think we'll be okay.
Absolutely.
So all right. So who do you have for number 2?
Number 2, I'm going to put Carolina.
Really?
Yes, and my lock is that Carolina will make the playoffs this year.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Number 2, I have the Capitals.
The Capitals. Hello,
Mhm.
Capitals. All right.
Yep. There's same as always. I mean, they have 104 last year, just barely eking out over the Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any real reason why they won't be in the same point range.
Okay.
Have them at 100, 105 again for this year.
Mhm.
They'll do what they normally do, and then get in the playoffs and see what they can make happen.
Okay. All right. I like Carolina from the standpoint of this is a young and upcoming team that kind of like I was going with Montreal of
Mm.
this is a team that's going somewhere. Carolina got a lot further last. They got the Eastern Conference Finals last year,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
I know they had the whole, post-game storm surge thing going on last year that was so popular. Well, at least,
Bunch of jerks.
but bunch of jerks, bunch of front-running jerks.
I thought it
Yep.
was cool. So
It was a fantastic story last year. I don't think they do that this year. I think Justin Williams is stepping away from hockey. I will not be surprised if he comes back around the All-Star break
mhm.
and says, you know what, my body's feeling good after not playing for 9 months. I think I want to come back, and I expect Carolina to be in the playoffs with or without Justin Williams.
Okay.
They have improved. I know obviously they traded away Justin Falk here recently, but they signed Gardner. They signed him to a decent enough deal, I think. And they're a team that is looking to make some things happen, and I think they have the pieces to make those things happen. Having Mrazek in goal, I think, is good because I think Mrazek needed a place to land and say, you're our guy, and I think they've pretty much done that.
Oh yeah.
And so I think you have some solidified things happening there to where it's like, all right, let's go for this. And good fan base,
Very good fan base. Yeah.
They got people to play for, so that's
There you go.
fantastic.
Okay. So who do you have for number 3 then?
Number 3, I put in Pittsburgh just because it's Pittsburgh.
Yep, same here. Have them at the 100 to 105 point range. Same thing as I said with Boston Bruins. Until they show otherwise, I'm not going to bet against them.
Pittsburgh, I could see where Pittsburgh takes a step back this year. I wouldn't be surprised, but again, until they do, it's hard to bet against Crosby. It's hard to bet against Malkin. It's hard to bet against Letang. It's hard to bet against Murray. I think there's just too much talented experience and respect there to say that you guys aren't going to be as good as you've usually been. Even though I think that's why I jumped Carolina ahead of them as far as I think Carolina could be a better team
Okay.
because they're younger and faster as this league continues to get younger and faster. And Pittsburgh is not really getting younger and faster. But I don't think they fall as hard as maybe some other teams that I predicted to fall kind of hard.
Like the Bruins.
Like Bruins,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think they'll be number 3 again. So, yeah,
Okay.
I agree with everything you said there. So, number 4.
Number 4, I threw in the New Jersey Devils.
Really?
I did indeed. Yep. And who did you have?
The Hurricanes.
Okay.
I'd say I'm not confident enough as you are for last year to be the real deal, or if that was
Right.
just kind of a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. They haven't got a lot of good pieces, but I want to see them do it again.
Absolutely.
And they are my wild card pick, which that's a team. If the Canadians were to get in, so the Hurricanes, I
Mhm.
wouldn't be shocked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very good. So let me try and justify the Devils here.
Okay.
Right. Obviously, they made a number of moves in the off season that they're hoping pans out.
Oh yeah, quite a few.
I'm not a huge PK Subban fan, but I
Mhm.
can see we're coming into a place like New Jersey, New York, bigger media market and whatnot. They're going to draw a lot of buzz. I'm hoping he lives up to that buzz. Right? He was already a personality and a star in Nashville. Like,
Yeah.
if you could be that in Nashville,
Oh yeah.
get to the big city, and his celebrity is going to go even crazier. Especially if you go ahead and get married to some Olympic skier or something. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
whatever. I mean, he's still a professional hockey player that sometimes wears a bikini, but
Yeah,
I am
yeah.
I'm still gonna say I think he has enough personality
Yes.
that he's going to draw enough attention away from other people on the Devils that in that market, like, there should be maybe less pressure on some of their younger, newer guys.
Well, even less on Hall.
Less on Hall, because he's going to attract so much more attention that it should be outside of hockey easier on those guys, which may create a better environment for the on-ice things to happen. Obviously, last year Hall was injured after coming off of the year before that, an MVP caliber year. Like, we're still talking a really, really good stinking hockey player.
Oh yeah, I would
That
have him on the Flames on a heartbeat. So
yeah, absolutely. I think every team in the league right now, if they could have Hall, would take Hall. And I think the potential with this team is a little bit easier to justify than with maybe some of the other teams that I'm like, I want you to prove it, with like Florida, of they have done so many things to get better this offseason. It's been phenomenal. I'm not a huge fan of Wayne Simmons, but
me either.
but still, maybe there's something there. I see where. All right, so I'm trusting Jack Hughes is going to play this year,
Oh, I would be shocked if he didn't.
and so if you throw out Hall and Hughes and Heischer and the other pieces they already have there, because they've been bad for a while to where they have some young players that should be getting better on a team that last year, yeah, of course they were last in their division because they didn't have their MVP caliber best player. Like,
Right.
you take McDavid off of their team, you take Crosby off it. It's like you take any one of those top guys off of any of those teams, yeah, they're probably not a playoff team, and they're probably a lottery team. So I would say that the New Jersey Devils have obviously a lot to prove. It's probably a fairly bold prediction, I would say, to go from 72 points to the 95 points I think they can get.
Okay.
I mean,
agree.
that's a big jump, and I know goaltending is question mark. Will
Schneider.
Schneider, he's had good years, he's had bad years.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you have high offense, putting in the puck in the end, it's easier to play defense. If
Much
you've
easier.
increased your defense by bringing in a guy like PK Subban, who, even though I'm not high on him, he's still an upgrade probably over the rest of their defensive core.
Probably.
Which, when you bring in a new number one, then your number one becomes a number two becomes, and it's like, okay, now some of their defense is actually playing against the lines they should be playing against, as opposed to playing over their head.
So
right?
overextending themselves to trying to keep up.
So, sometimes adding that one guy at the top makes everybody else better by bumping them down. And so, no, I think they could have that kind of year. And Taylor Hall is in a contract year. Unless they sign an extension at some point, Taylor Hall could be next year's biggest free agent, well, since Erik Karlsson. But that we've seen since, well, John Tavares. But it even seemed like Tavares basically had two options. It was like Toronto or New York.
Mm-hmm.
I can see Taylor Hall going anywhere he wants to go that can afford to pay him. And if you're 2 years removed from an MVP caliber year and you play outstanding this year saying, I'm totally healthy,
Who's not going to want to pay you?
you can have whatever you want. And obviously this is, like we're saying, a contract year. Sometimes you see guys just play absolutely phenomenal contract year. And whether he's playing with Hughes or not with Hughes or however they're going to pair that up, I can see where they're going to be a stinking fun team to watch and score a lot of points and be a surprise team. All those pieces come together. I believe they also got Nikita Gusev, which is this is our guy from the KHL, the Russian Hockey League, coming over to Vegas, who had his rights, which they acquired, I think, in their initial expansion trade. They made a savvy move and got this guy who's the best player in Russian hockey, right? Couldn't really get it worked out in Vegas. And so Vegas had to trade him to New Jersey, who could make it work.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those big unknown pieces of you may have a star player, somebody that has the hockey capability, the talent, hasn't done it on NHL ice, but still, as far as putting the puck in the net and making passes and skating, he has all the things. It's just figuring how his game translates into a smaller rink. But I think hockey players do that generally pretty well. If you play good in one place, you can play good in another place.
Usually.
And so
Neil. Sorry, what?
I can absolutely see where he is going to be a surprise bonus this year that didn't cost New Jersey a whole lot. Like, they've gotten a lot of bargain on what they've done. Obviously, winning the draft, that's a bargain, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously you're paying Taylor Hall, but he's worth paying. You made a deal for PK. You made a deal. You signed Wayne Simmons out of free agency. Like, they haven't had to give up prospects and other players to acquire the 3 or 4 players they've got this offseason that should make them better.
I mean, that's huge.
And so, I can see where I'm crazy, but I think if I'm going to make a prediction, I'll make a prediction now.
Yeah, there you go.
All that to say, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams around the 95-point range. I think only 2 of which can make the playoffs. And this is one of those teams.
Okay.
To where I don't necessarily say that they're going to make the playoffs, but they're right in that bubble, along with several other teams.
Okay. So, who do you have at number 5 then? Is it the Capitals?
Number 5 is the New York Rangers.
Ooh, my goodness. So, yeah, I have the Devils at number 5.
Yep, Devils at 5, sure. Yep.
I think they'll finish around 90-95. I'm not quite buying into all the hype, but I do think they're making a ton of moves in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I think it'll take maybe another year for that to really come together.
I would agree.
But, yeah, I think there'll be a vast improvement over last year.
Yeah.
The Rangers, huh?
I have the Rangers. Yeah, simply because of the standpoint of much like the Devils, where this is kind of the first year of, hey, our rebuild might be done. Let's see what we can go do. So there's a lot of potential there. Again, one of those teams that I have around the 95-point mark that's like going to be a playoff bubble team, to where if it's like, all right, actually, these guys don't make it, these guys do make it, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah.
But I would say the Rangers, I think the Rangers at least have the goaltending to in Lundqvist to say we should have a legitimate shot.
Okay.
If we can limit his number of games as a veteran to 50 games this year,
which is pretty reasonable.
Get 30 wins out of him there, then we just need another 10 wins out of our backup, and we'll be a 40-win team. And 40-win teams generally are pretty right darn close to 95 points, because you figure you got 40 wins, you're at 80 points right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you got some overtime losses and maybe a couple overtime wins here and there. Yeah, you could make some things happen. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year in the Metro New York area.
Okay. Yeah, I have the Rangers at number 6
Okay.
with 85 to 90 points.
Sure.
So a pretty big improvement. About they finished at 78 last year, so 10, 15 points more than last year.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like you said, I think they're trending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to bet on it yet because, well, it's New York.
Absolutely.
So
Mm.
they're one of those premier red teams like the Coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that think they can if they don't shoot themselves in the foot.
Sure. Absolutely. 100%. All right. Well, my sixth place team
Is this your bold prediction?
This is my bold prediction. And this is
Alright.
that the Washington Capitals miss the playoffs.
Ooh, that's pretty bold.
It is pretty bold. So obviously, I'm taking Boston and Washington and saying their window is closed at this point, which it was harder obviously to move Washington out of the playoffs than it was Boston out of the playoffs
Mm-hmm.
because Washington does have some youth. They do have, I think they have some better experience. Obviously, if you want to say 2 years away from winning the Stanley Cup, you miss the playoffs. It's going to take a dramatic fall.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I don't see where they can continue the pace that they have been on year after year after year after year.
So eventually it's got to dry up. Is what you're saying?
Ovechkin's going to dry up. Backstrom's going to get injured. Holtby's not going to play at the level that he's played at. Their defense is going to get older and slower. And they're, again, a team that I don't see where they have that young, hot, fresh talent that's going to bring life to them. Again, if they're in the playoffs, I will pick them to win a series. But I don't necessarily know they're going to get to the playoffs.
So they got to get there first. Mm-hmm.
And they came off Stanley Cup year, another year where they won the Metropolitan, and then lost in 7 games to Carolina. And I think that point right there was the breaking point of, okay, we just got beat by a younger, faster team. We are old. Like, at some point, you fall off that cliff, and I think that's where they're. I know Ovechkin might play for another 10 years, and he might break Wayne Gretzky's goals record. If he averages like 40 goals a year for the next 6 years, he'll break it,
Mm-hmm.
which he very well could do because he's averaged basically that his entire career, which is
Right.
ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. And I still don't understand why teams can't stop their power play
I know. I was just about to say that.
take away the guy that scores most of their goals. But nobody has yet, so why start now, I guess.
Yeah. Just let him camp out in his office. You know what
Yeah.
you know what he's going to do, but it's proven to be hard to stop.
Yeah. And I think the rest of the Metro has just gotten too strong.
Okay.
Because I take a look at a Washington team that I think is getting older, and suddenly the Rangers might be good and younger. New Jersey might be good and younger. Carolina is good and younger. The Islanders are playing better than they played before, and you still have Pittsburgh. There's not enough room in this division for the Capitals, in my opinion, if they slow down at all. And I
Okay.
think they slow down.
Sure. All right, so that's quite the bold predictions. So,
That is the bold prediction.
all right, who do you have for number 7?
Number 7, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Same here.
Because
They are my
Yeah.
lock to not make the playoffs this year.
ooh, a
Mhm.
locking out of the playoffs.
Locking them out.
Wow.
I think they lost too much, too big, and,
Yeah.
and it'll take a couple of years to recover.
Okay.
I mean, I don't blame them for what they did for trying it, but
Yep.
it didn't work out. So they got to try and recoup.
They are very much kind of the NHL's test case of, hey, okay, if we sell out at the deadline and sell out the future, can we go for the cup? And I think GMs are going to be like, yeah, that wasn't a great plan. I mean, good on you for trying it
Mhm.
and showing us not to do it, but
But
that
I mean,
wasn't
imagine,
a great plan.
Imagine if it had worked.
If it had worked, though, it'd be a completely
they'd
different
be
league.
geniuses.
Absolutely. Yeah, first time for everything, Torch. So then obviously that leaves us with Philadelphia rounding
Mhm.
out the bottom of the division, which I still don't think is going to be a bad team. I still think they'll be 80, 85 points.
That's what I have met.
You know, they're not going to. There's going to be at least 3 teams in the Atlantic worse than they are. You know, even though they'll be the last in their division, they'll still be the 4th in their
Mhm.
their conference. And probably overall, I still think they're going to be better than Minnesota. They'll still be better than Anaheim. They'll still be better than the Kings.
Yep.
So, but they're going to be way back in their own division, even though they'll still be like the 7th worst team in the league.
Right. So, I mean, they finished at 82 last year.
Yep.
Rangers had 78. The Devils had 72. And I think those bottom 2 teams made enough changes to boost themselves up, and the Flyers
Yep.
didn't really.
I know Flyers. They made the move right for Kevin Hayes, and it's like I don't know what they saw in him to say, hey, let's go out, let's get this guy's rights, let's sign him to a long, big deal because we think he's our future. And I'm like, no, he's not. And last year, they went through 8 goaltenders.
Yeah, I think so.
Eight
something like
goaltenders.
that.
I think they played 8 different goaltenders, but 8 different defensemen, and so it was one of those weird stats that you can get sometimes. I assume they've settled on Carter Hart.
I would assume so, yes.
I still don't necessarily know that I would say, okay, Carter Hart, you're going to be playing against Carolina. You're going to be playing against Pittsburgh. You're going to be playing against the Devils. You're going to be are you ready for the gauntlet that is the Metro Division? Because the Metro Division is one of these two strongest as far as point totals, as far as strong teams. They average 94 points on average in that division. The Central's at 95, but the Central only has 7 teams, so I think it's easier to carry a higher point total. So really the Metro is like the strongest division, and I think even the weakest team in the strongest division is still a decent team, but I just don't think they have enough right now to be in the playoffs or even be close to the bubble. Because somebody's got to be last. And I think that's going to fall to Philadelphia. Yep. And Philadelphia or Columbus, it could go either way. I have a hard time saying Columbus is going to fall from playoffs to last in the division.
Right.
Because that is quite
from
the fall.
To less than 80.
Yeah, but no, I would say that it's going to be a year of good hockey in Philadelphia, but not great results.
Yep, not good enough. I would agree. Okay, so to recap, I have the Lightning, Bruins, and Panthers, and the Leafs as wild card. I have the Islanders, Caps, Penguins, and Hurricanes as wild card, with the Canadians as a possible wild card instead of the Canes.
Okay. I had Tampa Bay, Toronto, Montreal in the top of the Atlantic, with Florida getting in as a wild card. I had the Islanders, the Hurricanes, the Penguins as the top of the Metro, with the Devils getting in as the wild card, with, again, either Boston or the Rangers or maybe even Washington potentially being a wild card team. I think the wild card race in the East this year is going to be hotly contested most of the way. And it'll be very entertaining to watch.
I sure hope so. So definitely looking forward to this year and seeing what this year brings. So any other last thoughts before we wrapped up the Eastern Conference?
It's going to be another fun, entertaining year of NHL hockey.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Alexander.
Thank you, Justin.
All right, this is the hockey podcast. You're about to hear what you just heard. Wrapping up the Eastern Conference predictions. So we will see how we fare. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk at you later.